Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on back. As some of you may have heard in recent news, the next Zombies game might add a Shadows of Evil remaster as the on-disc map for their next game, which is most likely going to be called Call of Duty Gulf War. Regardless of if the information is true or not, I decided to make a top 5 list for the things that Treyarch have to implement or bring back into this remaster in order for it to be successful. These are going to be in no particular order as they all relate to gameplay features that are equally as important. So without a further ado, let's get right into it. Coming into our first thing that Treyarch should add into the Shadows of Evil remaster, if it does happen, is a gobblegum type of system. Now, due to outside legal pressures on how random loot boxes are pretty much just gambling for younger audiences, I don't see gobblegums making a full return like how we saw in Black Ops 3. The problem with bringing them back isn't based on the gobblegums themselves, but instead how the player will obtain them. If they do bring them back, they might just scrap the Dr. Monty's factory mechanic that we saw in Black Ops 3, which I would be totally fine with. I think it would be pretty cool for Gobblegum to return, not based on a random loot box system, but by a challenge-based system instead. For example, if you can pay 500,000 points in a single match, you can unlock the shopping free Gobblegum and use it whenever you want for any game afterwards. It would not be beneficial to Activision financially, but with Black Ops 3, you could close the application and save your gobblegums, so I don't see why this would be any different. In terms of what gobblegums I'd like to see come back, it would be nice to see most of the iconic ones in Black Ops 3, like Perkaholic, Shopping Free, Alchemical, but there are some cool elixirs in Black Ops 4 as well that I'd like to see make an appearance into this next game, like Nowhere But There, which teleports you to your downed teammates, and Conflagration Liquidation, which spawns in a fire sale. Overall, I think most people would agree that gobblegums were not only a huge staple for Black Ops 3, but also for Shadows of Evil as an individual map. They fit in so well with the way that Shadows of Evil functions that it would feel weird if they didn't bring them back. Moving into our next feature that Treyarch should bring into a Shadows of Evil remaster is an all-around better Easter egg. Now, I'm not saying that the Shadows of Evil Easter egg as it stands right now is bad, but there are a few problems that stand out. First is the last couple of steps, that being the boss fight as well as the tram step after the boss fight if you're playing with 4 players. For the boss fights on this remaster, I'd like to see a coherent boss fight that is actually challenging. I appreciate the Shadow Man boss fight for being the first that we've ever had in Zombies, but nowadays this boss fight feels really outdated. If you bring in the right loadouts, you can complete it in under 2 minutes, and the boss itself doesn't really do anything. I think if they added in a different boss like an Apothecant or something, that would be a lot cooler. When it comes to the very final step, where you need 4 players to zap a box at every tram location, and then all the keepers at the middle, I'd prefer if this step was just completely scrapped for something else. You can still have the same ending where you kill the giant octopus in the sky, just make the steps easier to understand and actually doable on solo. Another thing that I'd like to see added in is an entirely new Easter egg. Since we are now in the Dark Aether storyline, playing through the events of Shadows of Evil just wouldn't make sense. I think if they kept in the old Easter egg with all the new changes to some of the steps like I proposed, and then they added in a new Easter egg with newer steps that is more related to the Dark Aether storyline, then that would be incredible. This way, newer players who didn't play Black Ops 3 now have the normal Shadows of Evil experience, and older players have an entirely new Easter egg that they can do. Regardless, I definitely think that the Easter egg needs a few changes if they were to remaster this map. Now, moving into our third feature that Treyarch has to change, we have the Wonder Weapons as well as the Specialist Weapons. Now, with the Wonder Weapon on Shadows of Evil, that being the Apothecant Servant, I don't think there's anything stat-wise that needs to change. It is one of the best Wonder Weapons to this day, and I highly appreciate it for that. The problem that I have with the Apothecant is how you obtain it. First, make it to where all 4 players can have one. In Shadows of Evil right now, there are different names given to the Apothecant Servant, and having each player with different named Apothecant Servants would be super fun to use. Would it be super broken? Probably, but at this point, who really cares? If I can play Blood of the Dead with 4 Magma Gats, let me play with 4 Apothecant Servants on Shadows of Evil. The only other change that I would add to the Wonder Weapon is making it upgradable. Treyarch already had a lot of the upgrade steps added in for this Wonder Weapon in the code for Shadows of Evil. If they just fully fledged it out and made it come to fruition, I think it would only add to the map. Not only do I think that the Wonder Weapon has to undergo some change, but so does the Specialist Weapon, that being the Apothecant Sword. The only thing that I would change about this Specialist Weapon is to make it usable through the D-pad, so that the players would have their own specialist ability that they can pick from, like in Cold War Zombies, and then they use the map-specific specialist weapon, in this case the Apothecant Sword, through the D-pad. People hated the specialist weapons in Black Ops 4 because people would just pick the best one every single time. In Black Ops Cold War, they updated this by having specialist abilities which were better in a lot of ways because you wouldn't pick the same one every single time, but I do miss the normal specialist weapons, so I think allowing players to use both would only be a net positive for the game. There's nothing wrong with the specialist weapon or the Wonder Weapon on Shadows of Evil, but I'd like to see a change to how they can be obtained so that they feel more up to date with modern zombies. Coming into our 4th feature that Treyarch should add into a Shadows of Evil remaster is the Cold War perks and weapons system. Now, I feel regardless of what map we get on launch, the Cold War weapons and perk system is going to come back no matter what. We will most likely get upgradable perks as well as some sort of weapon kit system for this next game, and I would be fine if they just copy and pasted those over from Cold War, but I'd like to see some changes for both. For the perks, I think it would be cool if we got rid of the Ethereum crystals mechanic and switched out for a challenge-based system similar to what I had in mind for the gobblegums. For the perks, I would like to see upgrade branches as well for each. For example, the first tier 3 upgrades would follow a single path, but once you unlock tier 3, it splits up into different branches for the next 5 tiers. This can add more variety to the perks without making them too overpowered and complex. When it comes to weapon kits, I love the ones that we got in Cold War Zombies, where you could apply blueprints in-game and customize each and every attachment to your liking. The only thing that I would change about this system is adding in more zombie-related attachments to each of the guns. Cold War did this to some extent by making these silencers and flashlights give you more salvage, but I'd like to see other attachments that do special things for zombies. For example, add an attachment that can instantly kill Margwas after shooting one of the heads. You can add a challenge to obtain these types of attachments as well. Overall, I expect to see some version of the Cold War weapon and perk system for this next game, and with these few small changes, I think it can be one of the best systems we've ever had in zombies. And for our 5th and last feature that Treyarch should add into a Shadows of Evil remaster is an 8-player mode. When it comes to zombies, most features have already reached their peak. You have a solid foundation when it comes to movement, weapons, perks, and specialist weapons with Black Ops Cold War systems. The most that you can do to improve those is by adding in small features to make them feel more polished. One thing we haven't seen in zombies, however, is an 8-player system for normal survival. You did have it for a bit in Black Ops 2's Transit, and that experience was really good. Shadows of Evil is an incredibly large map, probably not as big as Transit, but still ginormous nonetheless. Allowing more players to hop on the same game can lead to so many possible team-based game modes like Grief, Rush, or even some sort of Outbreak PvP, which, looking at zombies for the past couple of years, will most likely make a return. While all of these other features would be great to have for the already existing zombies formula, I think it's about time we open up to newer ideas when it comes to features in COD Zombies. And I think for Shadows of Evil specifically at least, having more than just 4 players on a map could open doors for so many possibilities. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Anyways guys, it's going to wrap up the video for today. If you did enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, do all that. Leave your comments down below if you want to see me do any other type of content. For more zombie related videos, check down the description below. And yeah, I got nothing much else to say, so peace.